Danny, I'm glad you're here with me once again to have continue our conversation from a little bit earlier. Those of you that don't know Danny Ballard, let me introduce to you my friend Danny Ballard. He's a coach, he's a trainer, he's a business advisor, and he's also the co-founder, along with John Zentgraf, of the Catalyst Success System, a coaching process that helps business owners grow their businesses. And those of you that know me, I'm Rebecca Monet with Zorakle Profiles. I'm the chief scientist and the CEO. We provide profiling tools for franchisors and for franchise brokers that facilitate a right fit between the franchisor and the franchisee. So, lots going on in the world right now, yes. Danny. It's kind of crazy. And I'm on the phone constantly with franchise brokers and franchisors and even sometimes franchisees. And the emotions are all over the place. There's people, I've been watching videos where people are practically screaming and they're angry and they're feeling out of control and they're fearful. And then others are, la-di-da, their heads in the cloud, everything's cool. They're really not kind of paying attention to this coronavirus and how it's affecting businesses. And then some of us are just in a freeze mode, or we're fleeing. We're saying, oh shoot, I got to get out of business. This is tough. So there's all these kind of unfamiliar emotions. Most of us have felt to some degree in charge of our lives, right? And all of a sudden outside forces, or at least it appears an outside force, has taken over our businesses and our lives. Can you address that for me? Where are all these unfamiliar emotions coming from? What can we do with them? Just talk to me more about that.
Yeah, Rebecca, thank you so much. And it is, it's such a challenging time. And like you say, there's this interesting dynamic where everybody in the entire world is having a shared experience right now. Stop and think about that for a moment. That's kind of amazing.
Wow.
Every person on the planet is experiencing exactly the same thing right now. That's never probably happened, I don't know, ever, maybe not many times in the world. But what's interesting is not only are we having this shared experience, but we're all having our own personal experience inside that group shared experience. And so to your point, we're seeing a lot of different people have a lot of different experiences. And so several things. First of all, we work specifically with small business owners. And so one of the things that I'm noticing is people fall into one of three categories. Either their business is going up, kind of amazing in the midst of all of this. Like I've got a gentleman that has a commercial cleaning company, and obviously their requests have doubled and tripled, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, I've got people that their business wasn't really affected, people that have recurring revenue streams, people that maybe are in the insurance business or things like that hasn't really changed. And then we've got about another third of the population that are really, really getting hit hard kind of a situation. And so it's interesting. So we've got this really myriad of emotions that are happening for people. I think what happens in a lot of these times, these situations, is I want to go back to a little bit about what we were talking to in our previous call of identity. And it's the idea of basically this idea of being. And being is not something that we talk a lot about in our world, in our society, but it's the idea, are we human beings? Are we human doings?
Right.
For most of us, we have actually turned into a society of human doings, and we define ourselves by our doing. Our identity is in our doing. I do this work. I work for this company. I get these kind of results. But that really doesn't have anything to do with your being. Your being is deeper than that, and it is basically consistent throughout this. And so what I notice is most of the stress that we have today is not coming from our being, it's coming from our doing. It's this idea that I can't go to the office the way I was used to going. I can't meet with clients face to the face the way that I was in the past. But those are all doing. Those are not being. Who I am as a human being, who I am on a soul level, my human beingness is still exactly the same as it was before this happened. And so I think there's this idea of unfamiliar emotions, but the emotions get triggered. The emotions start to come out as it relates to the way we thought it was, the way it is, and the way that we think it's going to be in the future. So kind of back to that expectation.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea is that we stop and we reevaluate what these emotions are. We recognize where they're coming from. Are they coming from a doing place or a being place? And then we stop and reevaluate what else is possible in this moment. So there's a psychological treatment called REBT, which is rational emotive behavioral therapy. And we actually use the concept of that in our coaching. And it's this idea that in life you have a situation, situation yields a thought, and that thought yields a feeling. So the situation is the virus. The thought is, I don't know what's going to happen with my business. The feeling is uncertainty and pain and fear and all these things. So the goal is to have a new thought and a new feeling. So the new thought is, maybe there are ways to reinvent myself. The new feeling now goes to hopefulness and innovation, creativity. And so going from this, and so what happens is we go through this phase of situation, thought, feeling, situation, thought, feeling, situation, thought, feeling, and we start to spiral in a negative way. And the key is to go to the new thought and the new feeling, and that's where innovation and creativity lives, and where it begins to take us to the next level.
Very cool. You know, it's interesting with Zorakle, we measure emotional and social intelligence, Dr. Daniel Goleman's work. And one of the markers is the one you were just talking about, which is emotional awareness. So it's the understanding what our emotions are and how they're affecting our behavior, our thoughts, and our ultimately our performance. But so many of these emotions, as you pointed out, are new, they're unfamiliar, they're popping up, and they're almost a reactive kind of thing. So to have a business owner stop and say, what is that emotion I am feeling? Okay, it's fear. And where's that fear coming from? Or it's anger, or it's doubt, or it's some other kind of emotion. To get in touch with it and realize it is a situational thing. It has nothing to do with your identity or your ability to grow a business or who you are, is kind of what you're saying here. But this emotion is something that's been triggered due to a situation that is unfamiliar. So this emotion likely is also unfamiliar, whether it's anger or frustration or whatever, is to self-evaluate, right? To say this is anger, or this is fear, and it's coming from, but it has nothing to do with my identity and what I bring to the table. And ultimately, it means I might have to think differently. It means I might have to behave differently. It means I might have to change strategy, even if it's only temporary, but I'm going to have to do some different things. So it's funny because one of the emotions I'm seeing a lot out there is anger. And I've studied this emotion from a neuroscience perspective for years. And it always comes from one of two places. It comes from a feeling of out of control, which triggers that fight or flight instinct, and I call it the possum, right, where we freeze. And or it comes from a place of injustice, where we feel life's not fair and it's not balanced in some way. But I think the point you're making is, situation, thought, feeling. It's a process, and if we can look at the feeling and we can backtrack and say, okay, it came from this situation, which created this thought, which created this feeling. So I don't want this thought anymore. Instead, I want something else. Then I'm in control. But we have to address that process. Yeah,
I'm sorry. And there's a really important part of that too. We're not discounting the thought and the feeling, the original thought and feeling. We want to let people assume that is how we feel. So we're not saying those are wrong feelings. We're saying accept that feeling is a result of that particular thought. So if you have a new thought, it creates a new feeling. So both of those things are true at the same time. And we think it's really important because we're not saying that you have to change the way you're thinking. We're saying think about it multiple ways, and as a result of different thought, you get a different result. The other thing I think that's really important, Rebecca, as we're at this stage, is talking about transformation versus change, because a lot of people use those two words interchangeably like they're the same thing. And we would like to describe change as some version of more, better, faster, right? I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it faster. And at some level, it kind of gets overwhelming, doesn't it? And it can start to feel guilty, and it can feel fearful. And we believe that true transformation is not change. It's a different experience. It's actually moving up this line and going to a whole new trajectory. We could sometimes call that an aha moment, or maybe people call that a paradigm shift, or whatever it might be. And the way we describe that is that really there's three bodies of knowledge. You know what you know what you don't know, and the third one, of course, you don't know what you don't know. And that's where transformation lives. Transformation lives in the don't know that we don't know. And so the way we like to describe it, and that is that all possibility exists in the unknown. All possibility exists in the unknown. So the minute you know something, you decide it, then possibility goes away. So think about the word decide. Decide means death, right? Pesticide, suicide.
Yeah.
So if you decide on something, you've put to death all other possibilities. Now, if you're choosing your spouse and you decide on them and kill off other possibilities, probably most people think that's a good idea. But in business, when you choose one thing, you might be killing off every other possibility. And so the way we describe coaching is we hold people in that space of unknown a little bit longer than they can hold themselves, to keep asking the questions, what else is possible? So they keep having these transformational aha moments. So in this time that we're in of unfamiliar emotions, it's very important that we allow ourselves to be in that place of unknown, and let ourselves be in that place of unknown just a little bit longer than we probably normally would, and we can allow ourselves to go through this transformation. Because out of that becomes new awareness. From new awareness comes new possibilities. And new possibilities comes more and better options. And so people are afraid of the unknown, and yet that's where transformation lives. And so I want to encourage us to embrace that as much as we can, and to allow that to be part of this going forward process that we're all going through.
Great advice. So to be comfortable with these emotions and with this unknown, knowing it's an opportunity to transform. Don't make decisions irrationally or too fast, because that shuts off other opportunities or other possibilities, right? So just linger a bit, just linger or hover a bit in those emotions, understand them, understand your thoughts, and know this is a wonderful transformational time in your business. Great advice. Great advice, Danny. So I'm going to ask you back for another session, if that's okay with you.
Awesome. I'd love to join you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Enjoyed this conversation with you.
All right, hon. We'll check back with you in a few.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Bye-bye.